Hey Sheldon, welcome to the Weekend
Hey,
Aquarist.
hi Amar. Thank you for
So
having me here.
yeah. So for the audience, I've got a special guest over here with me today. His name is Sheldon Richards. I normally don't introduce my guest directly like that, but Sheldon's a very dear friend, and he's a fellow hobbyist. He's been in the hobby now for close to 2 decades, and Sheldon does something special. He is into planted aquariums, and in a big way. He's made it big with small tanks, if I would say so. If you can see the tank behind him, it's uh, it's fully packed with some rare Anubias, some rare Buce varieties, and he's made a name for himself in the hobby circles, cultivating these. And let me tell you this, okay? That's a gold mine behind him. That if you are in Mumbai, if you are in Mumbai and Mumbai real estate is sky high, then let me tell you this, that is aquarium real estate over there, and that's green gold that Sheldon has got. He keeps it quite guarded. So I'm very thankful to him that he agreed to come on the Weekend Aquarist. Just a little introduction about Sheldon while I'll hand it over to him. Sheldon is, like most of us, a weekend aquarist. He's got a daytime job. He's a project manager in a leading IT company, and he does his typical 9 to 5, just waits eagerly to come back home to family and to his tanks. And weekend is when he spends on the hobby mostly. Quite a active hobbyist, and we'll hear from Sheldon now. So Sheldon, welcome to the Weekend Aquarist.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. I think it's great speaking to you. So,
Why don't you
uh,
tell us a little bit about yourself? Yeah.
absolutely. So I think the what Amar just mentioned at the green gold right behind me, and it didn't always start like that. Right? I mean, it started typical like most of the aquarium hobbies would start. Small tank, sugar sand, that scuba diver guy going up and down. Right? It always starts with that. Right? Similar with me, I started in 2007 with that same kind of setup. Having those sharks and dollars in that. But very soon after, like a couple of years, I seen discus. I mean, that was the king of the aquarium, right? I mean, it's a fish that's very close to my heart, and I kind of went to purchase it at the shop. It's super expensive. OLX was in demand at that time, right? I mean, there it was always you want to search something online, OLX. I found a home breeder somewhere around 2010, 10ish, and I reached out to him. He sold me like 6 pieces, medium size, and he's like, hey, TK, these are like good to start with. Uh, but I had a small tank, so I stay very close to the aquarium market circuit, right, which is in Borivali, Akar. There's Utekar, very very close by, walking distance from my house. I picked up like a 3 feet tank, an old second-hand tank, bare bottom, dumped these fishes in, and then started the entire ritual of discus keeping, right? Daily water changes, feeding them beef fat, and that kind of continued. And I enjoyed that hobby, right? I enjoyed the fishes growing, and they are fishes that kind of respond to you, right? That's how I got into like serious fish keeping stuff, right? And it kind of continued and so on, and I kind of enjoyed that part of it. So
Right. How
and
did how did you get into I'm sorry, there's a bit of a lag, so you please continue. Let's hear you out on that.
So I think most of the folks here wouldn't know that I used to keep discus. I used to breed them as well, right? Uh, and the funny thing that how it came into breeding is like those 6 pieces of there, two of them started forming a pair and they laid eggs one fine day on the tank. And, like hey, you know what? This is fascinating. Like it's, I mean, a discus keeper seeing his fish lay eggs. I mean, it's always a different experience. Then started the flurry of tanks, right? I mean, I got a small cube and then another tanks, and then gradually added 4 or 5 tanks, and that's how it kind of started with discus keeping. Planted was nowhere in sight at that time. And Amar, so I would like to the turning point of getting into planted, how it kind of came in. So in 2016, we were expecting our first child, and my daughter Kyra was born, and after a few months, she started to kind of crawl around with a toy in her hand and stuff like that. And this was kind of tragic and sad at the same time because I heard an incident nearby, somewhere in Jogeshwari or something. There was a kid who kind of banged a toy on the glass, and the tank cracked, and the kid was injured in the process and stuff, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah,
that day, the moment I heard that, right? I mean, that is it. It kind of hit me hard as a human being, as a first time father. I took the fishes, I gave it away to my friend the very next day, and all the tanks kind of moved out of the house. That is where the entire discus keeping kind of ended for me, right? I mean, that's how it is.
so
But
uh, how many what was the break like between, we keep going in and out of, in this hobby, we kind of start with one tank and then we take it to one extreme
exactly.
where, the house is full of tanks, and then suddenly we say, okay, enough, let's pack it off, and then we take a break, come back again. It's
Yeah,
never, that cycle keeps repeating. Yeah, so how long
yeah.
was it for you?
Yeah, so as you rightly said, right? I mean, we if you get into it, you cannot get out, right? It's like as the song Hotel California says, you can check in anytime you like, but you can never leave, right? That's how. So that's how it be. So it was like
Yeah,
almost
that's true.
8 months, a year, and stuff. And I'm like, I need the tank back. That's when I had a small 1 feet cube. I set it up in a corner of the house, and soil was given by a friend, and there were two very good planted stores near my place, right? And one is Akar, and the other was Aqua Nature. I kind of went there, and I'm like, hey, you know what? This is looking nice, very aesthetic. It's like a showpiece kind of thing. Uh, I bought a couple of tissue culture plants, at that time, put it in the soil, and and to my surprise, right? I mean, things were costly at that time. I'm talking about 2017-ish, I was not at the peak of my career and stuff. And you want to go and buy a light, it's like costing in thousands and stuff, right? I used a small tube light, the 1 feet LED light that you get, which you
Yeah,
can
yeah,
use it in
yeah.
your house, in your bathroom. I think, yeah, that's the light I kind of put. No CO2, a
Okay.
small, the small internal filter, with the spray bar on top. That's how I kind of started with planted, right? Put in some tissue culture plants. And I still remember, I think one of the plants that I picked up was Pogostum and I think one of the most difficult plants, right? I mean, to call. That was the plant that I dumped it in. As usual, no experience, nothing. I lost the plants. And then I went with phase two again got some plants. And those plants were picked up by Mr. Jaydev, right? I mean, he's a guy with a green thumb. So, I got the plant from him, put it in the tank. And then with little more experience, I got a CO2 tank from a local store, and that's when it kicked off, right? That tank kind of really took off, and gradually that was winter, so Mumbai was slightly cooler, and the plants kind of took off, and that's when I started with the planted tank, right? That's how my journey started in 2017-18 on planted tanks.
So you started off with the Pogestamon Helferi. Not many people kind of venture that far, and that too in, in a non CO2 setup. But adding CO2 would have really helped. And like you said, it was winter, so the water temperatures would have been really around 24, 25. Uh, in Mumbai, that
Correct.
is very short lived. The winters are like about 2, 3
Indeed.
months,
Indeed.
if at all. But I think those are also the best times to kind of, enjoy your
Yeah.
planted tank very much. And then, as summer sets in, we have the aquarium fans come in and all. So I'm sure you must have gone through all of that as well. So when did
Yes.
the planted hobby start getting into serious? Hey, I can actually, people are buying from me, and maybe this can sustain my expensive hobby also. So when did that start? When did that start?
I think that started in somewhere around 2000, late 2018, 2019, right? I mean, I upgraded my tank. I got a two-feeder tank,
Hmm.
in somewhere around 2018, 2019, and that's when I kind of got a Shirios light. I ordered it through a website. I think it was AliExpress or something at that time. That got delivered. I use that light and CO2 and good plants in that, right. A few mosses and stuff, and mosses rapidly grew. And I kind of
Hmm.
took a bunch and I kind of put it up in our WhatsApp group. Moss 100 rupees for a 4 by 4 or something. And to my surprise, I kind of managed to kind of sell or share in few 15 minutes or so. I had like some 6 7 packets and they all got sold out. And I'm like, hey, you know what, this is nice. And as soon as I got the money, as soon as I got the money, the first
Yeah.
thing that I did is I
Yeah.
went to one of the aquarium shop, picked up more plants, and I dumped in the tank. And that moment, I never thought about the price of a tissue culture price, because hey, you know what, you 600 rupees to aa gaya, but you can get 2 or 3 cups. I just didn't think. I just picked up, and that kind of started the entire journey,
Right.
right? And the plants started to upgrade, and selling started becoming more serious. And so one thing that I kind of the mantra that I use, right, while in the hobby, I make money out of the hobby, and that entire money is used uh, back into the hobby. So I make it a point not to touch my savings or my salary to sustain the hobby. I kind of use it from the money that I make. And there are peaks and troughs, right? I mean, you do make some, and with that, I don't think when I want to kind of buy something, if it's a light, if it's a filter, at this point of time, I mean, since I've evolved in this, I mean, I don't think about, should I buy once, what's it cost? I kind of buy it if I like it. And if it's going to help the hobby,
Hmm.
I kind of buy it, right? That's how I've kind of reached to a stage in this hobby at this point of time.
So it's interesting, and I'm curious to ask you, what's in that setup behind you? What kind of equipment? We'll come to the plants, but what kind of equipment, after you've cultivated yourself with the discipline that you've set, and not many people have that discipline. They kind of get tempted, like most of us do, to kind of spend a little bit more and buy the latest stuff and all. I see that you have gone ahead very gradually. You've had the hobby give you back, and then you pumped it back into the
Right.
hobby itself. So uh, tell us about the equipment that powers the tank behind you.
The equipment, the powers this tank. So I've got 3 tanks, right? I mean, they're all are 3 feeters. This is one which is indoor, which is predominantly sustained with different type of anubias. Few buce, rare buces that kind of is added for the color, but it's predominantly an anubia tank. Soil is Tropica that I used. The filter is an Aquael 1000. CO2, 2 kg CO2. There's a surface skimmer under it. The light is a Sirius WRBG2 that sustains this tank. You see the fan that's on the corner. That's from Shubham
Right.
staff, right? I mean, amazing, amazing fan. It helps keep the temperature much better in the indoor environment. So that is the equipment that powers a tank, right? In terms of fertilization,
Hmm.
I kind of use my own fertilizers now. I mean, since learning about it, I started with different fertilizers. Uh, ADA, I've used ADA. I've used, from Dr. Anurag as well. I even used the other fertilizers that are in the market. But gradually learning that I kind of started using my own fertilizers. I mean, that is your DIY. That is what sustains a tank
Hmm.
behind me.
Wow, wow, that's some learning. I mean, um, it does take a lot of observation when you are doing your own DIY, and you know, getting the right dosages is important. Otherwise, it can skew it in one side, and suddenly you have an algae bloom that is difficult to control. So, tell us a little bit about your experience in DIY as well.
So DIY, right? I mean, I did take help from Mr. Peter Lobo, right? I mean, who's a veteran in
Hmm.
this hobby. So he did guide. There's Kishore from Hyderabad who did guide me in terms of it. But something about DIY, right? People will tell you that, hey, this is the dosage, use this much ppm for a tank. But it's not something that works for me, will work for you. Because the plants are different, the environment different, temperatures
Correct,
different, right?
correct,
So
correct.
it's always upon careful observation. It took me somewhere around 6 months or so to get my dosage right. I did help folks, right? I mean, giving them this other ppm, this much quantity. In fact, to an extent, even mixing the fertilizer and giving to them. But it doesn't really work, right? I mean, it's different strokes, different folks kind of funda that goes here. So something that is there is careful observation, what works for you. It depends upon your water change schedule. You know, what's your maintenance schedule like? All those factors are taken into consideration. If you are dosing once a week or you're splitting your dose into twice in a week, right? All those factors matter. While this is a predominantly Anuvia tank, the dosing for this is completely different or for than my other tanks that are there, which has few stem plants. There's one tank which has only fern and Buce in them, right? So the dosing is slightly different for them. Even though the fertilizers are the same, the dosing, the ml that I use is different
Right.
for them. So it's about
Hmm.
observation,
And
yeah, that you kind of need to do.
yeah, and what about water changes? How often do you do water changes?
So I had a recent travel right last week. So the water changes, I missed two water changes. So I do my water changes either on a Saturday or a Sunday, right? Because corporate work, these are the 2 days that I kind of get to work with my tank. So Saturday, usually I prefer doing it on a Saturday. And I do large water change, right? I do somewhere around 70% water change in my tank. Uh,
Hmm.
and I start dosing the tank on a Monday. So I do a water change on a Saturday. I top it up. I don't dose anything on a Sunday. I dose on a Monday, and then I dose again on a Thursday. So that's
Okay.
the schedule that I follow.
Yeah, that again, that depends on the plants that you have, right? So Anubias,
Correct.
slow takers, and Buse slow takers. But if you're having stem plants, then obviously the growth and all will be much faster. So the consumption
Correct.
of the foods also is accordingly. uh, it's interesting to note, and that tank behind you is very distracting. Okay, so I see some cardinals or maybe neons. I can't really make out from
Right.
this
But
side,
they're
but why don't
cardinals.
you tell us about the fish inside? Cardinals, okay.
The
Why don't
livestock
you tell
that's
us what's
there.
there?
Yeah, the livestock that's there
Uh,
in this tank is predominantly cardinals from a fish perspective. There are a few ember tetras. They are just like a filler to break the monotony of the bright striking red and blue of the cardinals, right? In terms of a cleaning crew, I've got Otter Simplus, I got few Amanos, dream blue shrimps, that kind of nibble up some exercise with. And one of the major cleaning crew that I have it in most of my times, right, is the hornite. I think it's a very underrated snail in this, or from a cleaning crew perspective, very very underrated. But I put in a post in one of the in our groups of how effective horn nerites are. So there
right.
was a clump of Anubias completely covered with algae, and I put in a photo on day 0 and day 5. And trust me, they are a must have in your tank. But one
Yeah.
point of caution: if
Yes.
you have horned nerites, you cannot have assassin snails because they don't go very hand in hand, right? But horned nerite are my star of the tank.
So I used to have the zebra nerites, and there was a time when my CO2 diffuser was completely covered in a green algae, and I remember putting this purposely on in that diffuser. Right? It was an ADA diffuser, so it had that
Mhm.
rim. And I placed it inside 1 hour. Just took 1 hour, and it just cleaned it completely. So
Pristine, exactly.
I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it firsthand. So you're right about the Nerites. They do amazingly well as cleanup crew. Um, you said also, I'm just this out of curiosity, okay? For those of us who have kept Amano shrimps, we also know they have a tendency to climb out of the tank and go walking around the house, and most of the time they dry up somewhere. You know,
Oh yes.
you find them in the kitchen or in the balcony somewhere, but that usually is triggered by large water changes, and you did mention that you do large water changes. So I'm a little curious, and with the water volume at that close to the rim of your tank, it's quite tempting for an amano shrimp to go for a walk. So give me your experience on that.
Yeah. So I think that is one of the funny moments that I have in the hobby, right? Not on this tank, it was on another one, a 2 feet which is in the house. Uh, I topped it up with Anubias, with Amano shrimp, sorry, because Nerites I wasn't aware about them at that time, and did a water change, and my mom, when he woke up in the morning, she's like, there are cockroaches crawling on the floor, and they are different ones. And she kind of stamped them, like took couple of them. And I'm like, they are shrimps and they're expensive.
Oh
Yeah,
my
so that's
god.
one of the
Oh
funny
my.
moments within the hobby, right? But yeah, so regarding your question regarding them, right? Even though my water change are large, but the water that I use is stored in the tank, which is or a roof on a rooftop, right? So it's kind of pumped a day prior. So even though I do large water change,
Right.
my water change are very slow. So I don't gush the water in. It's very slow. You know, and that's how it is. And I also use the dechlorinator, that is the hypocrystals, while I'm doing the water change.
Mm,
So one of the uh, errors as hobbyists of what I've learned is that people top up the water and then do the throw the hypo in, right? By that time, your chlorine that's already impacting the fishes, the plants.
correct.
So you
Correct.
got to do
Correct.
it gradually.
Correct.
So I will drop in some crystal before I start pouring in the water, and then gradually I keep adding one crystal while I'm topping up the water. So that kind of helps. I've never seen
Right.
any ammonites jump out of these tanks. Fishes, yes. Sometimes if my daughter comes and bangs the tank, or there's somebody passing by from the room, fishes do jump out, and that's an unfortunate thing, right? I mean, if you see them in time, you put them back, or you find them dried across the sea. So
But I hope now
that's my
you've done
experience.
some education and shown them the pictures of this is what a cockroach looks like, this is what an amano shrimp looks like.
Yeah, that was. I mean, if you feel anything crawling, just don't
Yeah.
kill them, right? I mean, just ask me for it. But yeah, that was a funny one.
Okay. Yeah, good, good. Any more moments? We keep bumping into each other in these exhibitions and all, and you've been going there. But any more moments in terms of what you'd like to share with the other hobbies and all? And I'll come back to that green gold and that tank.
So Amar, I think I'll talk about you a bit, right? I mean, I know you had one of the most fantastic gallery, right? I would call it a gallery because there was not many galleries at that time, right? It was either an aquarium shop, aquarium store, but nobody called it a gallery, right? I mean,
Mm,
your gallery or your shop was a gallery. It was like an exhibition for people to kind of come and see. I know my dear friend Ninad, he picked up the tank from your place, right? The 4 feeder, which was there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I think your shop was, even though it was in Navi Mumbai, really far away, right? I did travel a couple of times there, and that was a gallery. So And that time, I was not somebody who was known, right? And interacting with you at that time was like, hey, you know what, this guy owns such a fantastic place, right? A very small conversation. I'm not sure if you remember, but yeah, very small conversation. And then gradually meeting at the exhibition, and you know, you were very warm as a person, right? To kind of have that conversation. That's how kind of we build connect. So yeah, I remember visiting your gallery at that time, and I hope it comes back soon.
Yeah. Yeah, yes. So yeah, so those are memories. Now you're going to bring tears in my eyes. Yeah, I can't do that on the show.
I know,
So
I know.
let's let's talk about what treasure you hold in that tank. Okay, what's the most, I won't call it cheap. What's the most economical plant that you have in there? And what's the most expensive plant that you have over there?
I think I think there are some brownie ghost 2011 in the Buce brownie ghost data. There's some couple of rhizomes in this one, right? Those are one of the most expensive ones that I would call, right? There's an Anubia King, which is a really big specimen that I have. That you can see it just popping up from the back. So that's one of the expensive
Mm.
ones. I think something that I would call not that expensive are the Anubia Nana peptides that I have right here filling up the space. But
Mm.
a lot of people fascinate views, right? I have got a fascination for Anubias. If there's a new Anubia there, I need to have it, right? It's like an itch that kind of never goes away, right? It's like I need to have that Anubia. So we talk about the Anubias that's there in the market or that's available, and I have it, right? I think around 17, 18 variants of Anubias are in this tank. Uh, some have paid like a super expensive amount of money to kind of get it,
So,
and
so
some never
I'll
could.
pause it over here. I'll pause it over here.
Sorry.
You're sidestepping the question. You're
Uh,
sidestepping the
okay.
question. So you need to be specific when it comes to the pricing also. So you need to tell me, okay, this is the most
Okay. Do I need to
expensive I
give a
have. It's
price as well?
about X thousand. Give me an
Oh,
idea.
sure.
No, you don't have to. Nobody's coming after you after that. After that,
No, no, no. Fair enough. Yeah,
they
yeah,
might
yeah.
just
I
call
thought
you. They might just call you to kind of buy something for you from you.
Mhm.
But just give us an idea. Give me a flavor because
Sure,
I'm
sure,
kind
sure.
of so
Yeah.
curious to know as to what all is there in that tank. Yeah.
Sure, sure. I'll give a couple of price thing right when I go back. So I think a couple of expensive stuff, right, that I would call is a brownie ghost. This is the original 2011 brownie ghost, which there was a hobbyist who got it from Mr. Dennis Wong, right, the 2R one of some East tank. So this is that specimen.
Right.
It goes in the range of. It started selling at a range of 8,000 10,000 for a rhizome. Now, since people have kind of grown it more, it's in the 4,000 ish range, right, for a single rhizome. The Varking, I think if you have like a good variegated variant, I think it goes in the range of 7 to 8,000 for a clump, right? Um, so I think those are the two extreme, or I would call it slightly expensive species that I have. I think the normal Anubia and nanopatites, what I have, they are in plug and play clumps, right? I mean, I use it in clumps. So those go in the range of 300, 400 for maybe a 3 to 4 rhizomes in a clump. I think those are the range that I kind of sell.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, that's good. That's really helpful for viewers to understand. I think, see, the reason I asked you this, Sheldon, is because a lot of hobbyists today, they're in various stages of their journey. Some of them are just starting off. Some of them have only fish only tanks. Some of them are venturing into planted, have got into stem plants, non CO2. Some others have now made the move and invested in a CO2 setup, pressurized, some of it in DIY. So everybody's in a different stage of their hobby.
stage, correct.
For yeah, for everyone, it's that point where they start earning from the hobby also. That gives a real kick, like you said, the first time that you sold something, it gives you a real kick. It's something that you have
Yeah,
created and that has value. in the eyes of others, that they are willing to pay you money for it. It's there's something else altogether. And I've gone the entire journey through that, right? So when, for example, when you create an aquascape and somebody's willing to pay you for that creation, that's your creativity that's getting paid. So everybody's in a different stage, and it would help for hobbies to understand, and also get inspiration from somebody like you, who's you know in 2017 you started back, and it's just been what, 8 years now, and you're doing this, so it's amazing. uh, in terms of who buys from you, are they typically hobbyists, or do you sell to shops or aquascapers also who pick up from you?
Yeah, so most of them are fellow hobbyists, right? I post on WhatsApp, fellow hobbyist. If there's a bulk quantity, I reach out to shops. There are few specific shops, not in Mumbai, either in Chennai or in Delhi. They kind of pick up Anubias in bulk, right? And but majority are hobbyists that kind of
Right.
reach out to me.
So it's interesting to note, and this is again for the viewers. It doesn't matter really, whether you have one tank or you have many tanks. You can actually monetize even in that single tank also. And I say that from experience, because I've gone from one tanks to probably 200, 300 tanks, and then again my gallery and all of that stuff. So but right now I have got only one tank at home. That's a 3 feeder like Sheldon has, not as densely packed, but I have regular aquascapers who come and pick up the ferns which have really grown, especially needle leaf ferns and all. So you can do a lot. And Sheldon, really wanted to thank you for sharing your experience. Um, Tell us a little bit before we kind of wind up for the day, because I'd like to come back again, invite you again, some time in the future for sharing your thoughts and all. But in terms of the three tanks that you have, okay, you did mention this one is inside. So are the other tanks kept outside somewhere? Just curious to understand that.
Yes. So I live in a row house kind of setup, right? I was blessed to be born in the setup like this because having space, garden space in Mumbai, it's really difficult, right? But I've been blessed with a setup like this. So I've got a huge garden. I've got a
Right.
terrace as well, and so it's like a garage shed that I kind of have, which is open to my garden with a lot of trees. So my tanks are over there, but my two tanks are out there where it is predominantly filled with Buce and ferns. The second tank are filled with Buce, some stem plants, right? Uh, and the more expensive collection of Buce are outside. Now, the best part about it is the temperature, right? Outside, since it's a covered area and it's open to the garden, there's a lot of breeze, right, that kind of flows. So the temperature difference between this tank and the outdoor tank is at least a 3 to 4 degree difference that I see. And those tanks are much cooler outside than the ones right behind me. That's why the choice of plants.
I
Anubias
would
can
have,
take
I would,
sure,
I would have
sorry.
thought it's the other way around.
No, no.
No,
So so exactly. So
amazing.
that's a surprise. That's the beauty, right? So the choice of having Anubias here inside is because Anubias can take a variation in temperature, while Buse does, but not to that extent. Ferns need cooler
Mm.
setup, so that's why they are outside. Uh, I think a couple of years ago, I used to have small tanks outside as well. I have read crystal shrimps in the tank outside our house with a fan and a regular top up of water. I was able to breed crystal shrimps as well in the tanks outside in Mumbai, and that is in the month of March and April. Not I'm not talking about winters, right? I'm talking about start and onset of summers. I was still able to breed because the temperature used to used to stay around 25, 26 range, and I did not sustain it to that long, but I was able to do that. So yeah, the tank outsides are much better condition, better shape than this one. Yeah.
So, just for viewers, we're going to have the video clips and photographs of whatever Sheldon has been describing, because we are just imagining right now, and we'll be incorporating them in the video so that you can have a look at that as well as he's narrating it. Um, Sheldon, it's been such a pleasure chatting up with you, and I know we've been talking about this, and yet again this was at a short notice. So thank you so much for accommodating, and
Welcome. It's been a pleasure.
I'm looking forward to having you again, sometime in the future on the show. We'll talk some more details about, how do you take care of Buce, how do you take care of Anubias, because I'm sure the viewers would want to know that, learn from your experience, and pass it on. So that would be something we'd be all looking forward to.
Yes, yeah, you're more than welcome to come in. Any hobbies that is there, live nearby or are okay to travel to Mumbai, you're most welcome to come over anytime. I'll be more than happy to have a chat with you guys.
So I'll be also mentioning Sheldon's social handles in the video. So if anybody wants to reach out to him, they can reach out to him on WhatsApp or Insta or Facebook. He's there. So thank you so much, Sheldon, and once again, thanks for being on the Weekend Aquarist. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.